This is Whiskey Whereabouts. I'm Tim, and as we come into the fall of 2025, we've got 9 distilleries on Islay with whiskey on the market. We've got another one that's up and running and 2 more scheduled to come online before the end of this year. So I thought it was as good a time as any to check in on the status of the distilleries on Islay and sort of check in on the power rankings as they were. I'm going to rank all of the Islay distilleries, and I expect that the question is not whether or not you're going to disagree and be upset with at least one of my picks. It's just which one will it be. My whiskey journey has taken me to Scotland and back. I've explored whiskey education, tastings, and distilleries from Islay to Speyside. And now my journey continues here with you on Whiskey Whereabouts. Diageo reopened last year the Port Ellen Distillery. So they're about a year into production, a little bit more. So we're a couple years away from them having whiskey in their warehouse, but they are up and running. That's number 10. But that is not the end of the story, because we've got 2 more that are on the verge of joining the club. First up, independent bottler Elixir has the Port Natruan Distillery, and then a joint venture between Ian MacLeod and the Islay Boys, again independent bottlers, the Lagan Bay Distillery. Both, there were some delays, but both were announced and scheduled at not too far in the distant past to come online here in 2025. Not sure if one or both are going to make that timeline, but soon, and not too far in the distant future, about 3-4 years, we may be looking at a dozen Islay distilleries with whiskey out in the world. I previously did one of these rankings that was a lot more complicated. I ranked, I think it was the top 24 or something like that, Speyside distilleries. I had to come up with all this rubric to have it make sense because I have so many distilleries, but I did it in 2 parts. If you never saw that, well, so that video is a little old now, but I'll put a link up to the top half of that list so you can kind of check it out. Can't do one of these lists without an honorable mention, and that's how I'm going to address Port Ellen, because we don't have any of the whiskey yet. So Port Ellen was an old distillery. It's reopened by Diageo. It was dormant for a good bit of time. They are up and running now. We don't have whiskey yet, so put a little bullet point on this one, and let's leave that for a little bit. But it is out there. There is spirit that exists in a warehouse from the Port Ellen Distillery. They don't have whiskey yet because they haven't had the 3-year time it takes to get there. So let's start the list. And for me, there's no question what the last place distillery on this list is. It's Bowmore. And the problem is the pretty weak presentation across the whole core range and the price. I don't know anybody who buys Bowmore by the bottle here in the US. It's everywhere though. People are buying it. We've got a 12 years, 40%. We've got a 15 year that bumps up to the 43%, but it's $120. Even the 18 is 43%. It costs over $225. Bowmore is that kid in the class who does pretty well on tests, but never turns in its homework. You just wish that they would just try a little bit harder. I've been to the distillery. It's right on the water. It's very tight into the place, which I love. That salty kind of on the sea. I've had 21 year Bowmore that I myself pulled out of the cask with the Valanche cask strength. Absolutely fantastic. And in particular, the sherry Bowmore. I think that spirit with the peat and with that sherry really surprised me about how much I really enjoyed it. So moving on to number 8, here's one that you can absolutely disagree with me. I think it's about criteria, about separating these out. I'm going to place Kalila at number 8, and Kalila's spirit is awesome. There's tons of it, and it's so reliable in independent bottlings. You very rarely have a bad independent Kalila. It's all over the place. There's a bunch of sort of known, independently bottled Islay whiskeys we assume are Kalila. The problem, again, is presentation and price tags again. So it's Diageo, so it's got that sort of Diageo presentation. We've got 12-year whiskey for $80. I got a $200 15-year. these are 43% whiskeys. There's an 18, there's a 25. They do have the distillers editions. You do have the annual release, a special release. If you haven't seen last year, the 2024, I did a blind tasting flight competition with the complete set of the Diageo special releases, and I'll put a link to the sort of championship flight up here. No spoilers, but Caol Ila does very well when it's properly presented. I am penalizing it here because of the core range and the way the official bottlings. If you are looking at this from a different angle and saying there's so much great Caol Ila out there, you just have to get out, beyond the official bottlings, it should be higher. That is a reasonable argument. So next up is where I'm going to place the new kid on the block. Not last, not even second to last. At number 7, I'm going to place Ardnahoe. This was a great release to come out and introduce this distillery to us. I recently reviewed last summer's hottest whiskey, this whiskey. Put a link up here if you haven't seen. It is very impressive 5-year, very classic Islay whiskey. It was limited. It's still out there. I found it not too long ago. The core range actually 2 non-age statement whiskeys. One is more sherry forward. It's all 50% across the board. Trying to have that sort of real focus on the quality presentation with that higher ABV. They have signaled to us with that first release, their mission statement, the way I received it, that they're here to do things the right way. There's some potential built into this placement on the tier. I can't bump them up any higher until we see some more from them, but that's how they earned their place here. Moving on to number 6, and this is the part of the list where a lot of you are not going to be happy with me, because, again, focusing on the offerings from the distillery, the specs, the dollars, I'm placing Laphroaig at number 6. We don't have bad distilleries from here on out. I have to sort these somehow. My thoughts about the 10-year are well known on this channel. I think it's too young. Laphroaig 10 is sort of the cilantro Scotch whiskey. Some people have it and are just in love forever with Laphroaig, with Islay whiskey. Some people, it's just so medicinal, are put off entirely. It's very subjective. But that's fine. I can handle that. My real problem with the 10 years is it's 43% and all the Laphroaig has fake color in it, and it all costs a little too much for the presentation and relative to what you can get from some of these other distilleries. So you've got a non-age statement, select in the core range. It's not very good. You have a bad presentation on that 10-year. It's $70. You've got a 10-year in the sherry cask. It's outrageously overpriced. There is a quarter cask. I'm a big fan of it. The Laphroaig quarter cask rocks. It solves the problem that I have with the 10-year. Even though it's technically younger, the quarter cask turbocharged the maturation. It ages faster, and it has smoothed out that medicinal sort of note and just brought it into balance. For me, it's a huge improvement, but it does cost more. And I remember when this was $70, $75. Now I see it more than $80, which is a lot for non-age stated, even though it's properly presented whiskey. The Lore is another whiskey that I reviewed on this channel. It is good. It is well presented. Apart from the fake color, it is overpriced. Again, the Carchus is a pretty solid, and I think that's the thing that's going to come up on a few of these distilleries. It's certainly the case with Caol Ila. Here with Laphroaig, those annual special releases where you get maybe a cask strength presentation. Last year's Carchus had the 10-year age statement. I think this year's also has 10 years on it. Reasonably priced. I see those for $100 for 10-year age stated cask strength whiskey, quality whiskey. Good stuff. Good stuff. We've got some big age statements in this core range. We've got a 25-year. It's on that shelf behind me. It has not yet been opened. We will open that and experience it together sometime in the near future. We need something to commemorate, to open a bottle of that caliber. More details to come, but what we're going to do to build up to that. I can't wait to experience the 25-year. Maybe I'm coming back when I have occasion to sort of rank these with that influence, and maybe it changes, maybe it doesn't. I will say same thing as Bamor at Laphroaig, personally pulling out of the cask. Absolutely transcendent stuff, fantastic. It's a very competitive race here with a lot of great distilleries. I think you understand where I'm coming from with this ranking. You may now tell me in the comments why I am wrong. Moving on to number 5 on the list. This is going to be the second youngest distillery on Islay with whiskey on the market. It is Kilchoman, the farm distillery. Kilchoman is 20 years old now. They've been around the block for a little bit. What we have is a core range of all non-age stated, but properly presented whiskeys. You got the Micro Bay, then the Seneg with the sherry influence, then you've got the Loch Gorm, and now the big knock on this distillery, at some point it became, where are the age statements? They clearly have calibrated what they want the base to be. We now have a 13-year age statement that is available. We've got the 100% Islay barley. It's on a farm. They raise their own barley. They're interested in the terroir in whiskey. Islay barley and terroir will come up again on this list later on. We've got tons of these limited releases, and now we've got the special cask strength. There's cask strength, Micro Bay. There was a cask strength on the Seneg. I reviewed this whiskey. I think I'm higher than the baseline on Seneg core range, and on this one, really like how they've calibrated the peat with the perfect level of sherry for this spirit. We've got some really iconic Islay distilleries still on the board, including the one I placed at number 4. It's the second Diageo distillery on the list, and it is Lagavulin. So Lagavulin and Kalila start out with the exact same malt and become what they become based on the distillation process. And what Lagavulin becomes is an absolutely iconic, emblematic, what we think of when we think of Islay whiskey, right? What's the problem? Why isn't it higher? Diageo is the problem. Diageo presentation is the problem. The iconic 16-year, 43% chill filtered, color added, and the price has really crept up. I saw it on sale today for $95. I'm routinely seeing that whiskey at over $100. It's why a lot of us don't buy it by the bottle anymore, because it's crept up for the presentation, but it is undeniably one of the standard bearers of what we think of, right? But the story does not end there. We've got the 8-year with a nice presentation, 48%, I think. We have some of the special releases, and that's really what is saving for me and boosting Lagavulin above, say, a Laphroaig. When we compare my same complaints about the core range, I think the core range of Lagavulin has better presentation across the board. We've got the off-ferments. I don't know if or when we're getting the next one, but I've really enjoyed these. This one was the best, in my opinion. This was not the last one, but the one before, the charred oak. These are very well presented, special whiskeys. Last year was with rum, nice experiment to compare. You've got stuff like this. You've got the annual special release. I didn't love last year's. Again, those annual special release Diageos, yeah. Are they expensive? Yeah. There's a whole sort of thing this year, if I recall, especially in the UK, where if you waited it out, you could get a good deal on them. The prices kind of dropped if you weren't an early adopter on those, the ones that were still on the shelves. At the very least, you've got some nice cask strength, slightly different presentation, and you've got distillers additions. To me, the combination of how much I respond to the Lagavulin sort of spirit, the presentation, and the availability in the range of these more properly presented, more craft-focused versions, presentations, really elevates this one up. I think there's a jump when we get to number 3. And now we're at Ardbeg. Why is Ardbeg, to me, a step above Lagavulin? They're neighbors. They are a mile away from each other. They're both incredibly emblematic, smoky Islay whiskeys, right? It's because top to bottom, the Ardbeg core range is pretty undeniable. This whiskey to me is an absolute value. It is the one I offer to people who have never had peated whiskey. It is not out of balance. It doesn't come on too strong, but it is properly presented and it's properly priced. This is about $60-ish for these specs for what you get with the 10-year age statement. It is very solid. Wee Beastie, 5-year. More ABV. Properly presented, even cheaper. That one is going to be $55 or fewer dollars. But we're not done because we have those big, non-age stated cask strength offerings in the core range. The Ugadal, my favorite, the Corey Vrecken, a whiskey that's very special to me, that I really enjoy and get sort of romantic and nostalgic about. And they are not cheap. The Ugadal is more reasonably priced. The Corey Vrecken has gotten a little expensive for non-age stated, even cask strength whiskey, but the quality is there. What's the knock on Ardbeg? All the limited releases. They're inflated in price. There's too many of them. They seem to be trying to change that reputation a bit. The quality of the most recent releases was received better, at least in our sort of community here on Whiskey YouTube. You have some of these big bottlings, because of 19-year, that Trayvon and some other stuff, sort of aspirational, sort of big stuff, but you've got a distillery with a really solid, reliable core range. It really, you come back to it, right? At least I do. Then there were two, and it's hard to get around the fact that one of these two distilleries is primarily releasing unpeated whiskey. And for me, sort of Islay so closely identify with that, but it's not the mascot rankings for Islay, it's just ranking the distilleries, at least to me. But I am going to go with Bunnahabhain at number 2. Love Bunnahabhain. We celebrate the channel's birthday every year with Bunnahabhain. This was the oldest and most expensive bottle that we've ever reviewed on the channel. If you haven't seen that, I'll put it up here. This is the 25-year. This is not how we got here with a release like this. The 12-year is so high quality, but has its own character. It is distinctive at a very reasonable price for 12-year with great specs. 12-year cask strength. If you haven't seen Malt Madness, my blind tasting tournament from March, from this year, no spoilers, but check that out. As you go up the ladder on those age statements, the 18 and then to the 25, the price is really high. You're not getting bargains. You're not getting values. About the unpeated, there is a peated. It's not age stated. There are two non-age stateds, I believe, in the core range, and the peated one is called the Toichikada. It is solid, very solid quality. Love Bunnahabhain spirit. Love the presentation. Love it with the sherry. And when we have the peat and the unpeated, it's a personal favorite. When we're getting this high-ranking quality distilleries like we are on Islay, it's going to get subjective. Few of you who are subscribers will probably be surprised. If you have not seen, I was challenged with the Jeff Whiskey Summer 2025 Challenge to pick one distillery for life. David drinks whiskey, send it to me. I'll link to it at the end. You can check it out. Not hard to guess where I headed with that, given that I'm going to place Bruichladdich number 1 Islay Distillery, and it's all for the same reasons. Yes, this is unpeated and peated with 2 lines. We got the Bruichladdich and the Port Charlotte. We got the unpeated and the peated. And the peat is sourced from Inverness. It is not Islay peat, which is offset for me by Bruichladdich singular focus on terroir, right? In whiskey, they're so interested. I think the peated Port Charlotte is aged on the island. They're very interested in the Islay barley. There's the Islay barley Bruichladdich. They have the organic barley Bruichladdich. They have the Islay barley Port Charlotte. And of course, you've got the Octomore, the 0.3 with the Islay barley. You get the Octomore table over my shoulder. And that's the thing. They've just covered every base. This whiskey, the classic Laddie, is non-age stated, but with transparency, you can figure out what the age statement would be. 50% across the board, at Bruichladdich and Port Charlotte. It's just a really solid whiskey for a 60 or less $1.50% whiskey with 6, 7, 8 years. It's hard to beat in that sort of category on value here. Then you've got the higher age statements if you want to chase them. I don't love the higher aged Bruichladdich as much as some of the other releases. The Port Charlotte, excellent 10-year peated whiskey. It does cost a little bit more than the Ardbeg. It's a little bit more special. It's got a little bit different cask configuration. It's got the higher ABV. And then you have the Octomore range. You know, they've got the bourbon matured. You've got the wine finished. You've got the Islay barley every year, 3. Now they've got the distillery exclusive for a 4th version. Are they overpriced? Yeah, they are. But they are also kind of a magic trick. It's 5-year whiskey at that price. It's kind of crazy, but huge ABV, huge ppm on the malted barley, and it is just drinkable. There's nuance. It is a whiskey that really performs well in blank flights because of even against other big sort of cask strength whiskeys. I find there's just a sort of a magic to it, and for me, that is, you know, the criteria to sort of climb a pretty competitive mountain here. The sort of range of offerings and the level of quality and the distinctiveness, you know, the focus on, you know, what is unique about Islay, what is unique about their distillery, the way they do things. Very impressed with a lot of what's on offer from this distillery, but it's all subjective. When we're splitting these distilleries, it is totally understandable if somebody's list is completely shuffled. Not so much with Bamore rising too much higher, right? Try harder, Bamore. You could be in the ranks, but other than that, I can absolutely see. So, what is your top 3? How would you rank them? If you want to rank them, I'll rank them all. I'm gonna ask in the posts on my channel for your rankings as I post this. And in the meantime, make sure you subscribe. Take a minute before you post your angry response in the comments below to hit the subscribe button. You don't want to miss any of the future videos coming on the channel. We've got a very special Islay related video coming on the channel very soon. You don't want to miss that. Hit this big button that's coming up right over here, and I will see you on the next one.